And a breaking news alert, President Trump turning up the heat on Tehran. His ultimatum, strike a deal or bad things will happen. Good morning, I'm Dana Perino. Bill Hemmer is off today. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Dana, good morning to you. Happy Friday to you as well. I'm Bill Malugin. This is America's Newsroom. The president says he's giving Iran 10 to 15 days to give up their nuclear program. This, as American military assets are flooding into the Middle East in what is reportedly the biggest buildup since the Iraq War back in 2003.
So the Wall Street Journal reports President Trump is weighing a limited strike to force the regime's hand. The president says the ball is in Iran's court.
What is the goal if there is a U.S. military strike?
Well, we're either make a deal or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
But with a military strike, is it to wipe out their nuclear program?
I'm not going to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them.
And you said today 10 days. Have you given them a deadline firm to make a deal?
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
And Jacqui Heinrich is joining us live at the White House with more on this. Jacqui, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill. For days, U.S. officials have said Iran is ignoring the U.S. red lines on zero nuclear enrichment, instead floating proposals that would allow it to continue for civilian use or suspend it only for the duration of President Trump's term. And now Iran this morning is out with a bold new claim that the U.S. isn't asking for zero enrichment at all.
The U.S. side has not asked for zero enrichment. What we are now talking about is how to make sure that Iran's nuclear program, including enrichment, is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever. And in return, Iran, does some confidence-building measures to ensure that its program would remain peaceful.
President Trump has said in no uncertain terms that the U.S. will accept nothing less than zero enrichment, including saying this on camera. Here's a flashback to last week.
Would you accept anything less than zero nuclear enrichment?
We don't want any enrichment. We don't want enrichment.
President Trump told reporters yesterday Iran has a very short window to agree to a deal, about 10 to 15 days, amid new claims from a prominent Iranian opposition figure that Iran is preparing for war and rebuilding its nuclear sites despite engaging in these talks with the U.S. The gridlock reportedly prompting President Trump to consider a limited initial strike to force Iran into agreement. The Wall Street Journal writing, the opening assault, which if authorized could come within days, would target a few military or government sites. People familiar with the matter said if Iran refused to comply with Trump's directive to end its nuclear enrichment, the U.S. would respond with a broad campaign against regime facilities, potentially aimed at toppling the Tehran regime. Within days, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, will reach the eastern Mediterranean. As of last night, it had reached the Strait of Gibraltar. Meantime, Iran this morning issued a fresh threat to the U.S., saying that if the U.S. continues to talk to Iran with the language of force, Iran will reciprocate with the same language. Bill.
Yep, something's got to give soon. Jacqui Heinrich live at the White House this morning. Jacqui, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And joining us now is State Department spokesman Tommy Pigott. Thanks for being here today. Can you help us understand what precisely is the problem that President Trump is trying to solve here?
Well, look, it's been clear from the beginning of this administration that Iran's the destabilizing actions of the regime there must end. And we've been very clear about what those destabilizing actions are. We've had a maximum pressure policy from the beginning of this administration that was bent on denying the Iranian regime the revenue they need to do things such as fund their nuclear weapons program, such as fund terrorist proxies across the region, such as fund their ballistic missile program. You have a regime in Iran that instead of funding water, food, and energy infrastructure, wasted their vast wealth on these malign activities. And President Trump has been very clear that those malign activities must come to an end.
The foreign minister was on Morning Joe. I think you might have seen that just now in Jacqui's piece. He had one other thing to say about the military buildup.
A win-win deal is when U.S. is absolutely confident that Iran's nuclear program is peaceful and would remain peaceful, and for Iran, sanctions are lifted. I'm not, referring to military build-up around us because that is absolutely unnecessary and unhelpful. A diplomatic solution is at our reach.
There seemed to be, at least from his perspective, trying to say that there's confusion about zero enrichment. Is the president's policy zero enrichment?
Well, the president has spoken to this. The bottom line is that the Iranian regime cannot have a nuclear weapon. The president has been very clear. It's something he repeated just yesterday at the Board of Peace meeting, that historic meeting that global coalition brought together. He is pursuing peace. He wants to be a peacemaker. He is a peacemaker. He's a deal maker. But you cannot have peace in the Middle East if the Iranian regime has a nuclear weapon. That's the bottom line. The president has been very clear on that.
Okay, here's the map of the military assets that are now in the region. So the president building up some firepower in the region if he needs it, right? So he's saying he has flexibility. When he says 10 to 15 days, does he mean from today?
Well, that's up to the president. The president is going to make that ultimate decision. I'm not going to preview what he might say, but I think it's important to say that the president means what he says. The last time the Iranian regime refused to make a deal, we saw Operation Midnight Hammer. So if anyone doubts that the president means what he says, they just need to look at history to see that he does.
And do you feel that the military might gives diplomacy more of a push?
Well, fundamentally, President Trump believes in peace through strength. When it comes to our force posture in the region, Secretary Rubio has described that our force posture reflects the interests we have in the region, reflects the fact that there are U.S. troops in the region, reflects the fact that there are our allies in the region. But fundamentally, President Trump has built the most powerful military in the history of the world, but believes in peace through strength. We see it around the world when it comes to solving conflicts and pursuing our national interests.
One last question. When the protesters so bravely went out and said, we've had enough, and the president said help is on the way, is that help included in this planning, whatever the 10 to 15 days is, in this diplomacy? Does something happen for those people who are desperately seeking change and more freedom in this plan?
Well, a few weeks ago, we saw President Trump stop the execution of hundreds of protesters. We've seen action from the State Department's perspective about leveling pressure against those officials or individuals that were involved in the brutal suppression of those protesters. We've seen those actions being taken here from this administration already. This is something the president has been monitoring incredibly closely. He's been very clear with the regime. It's something he continues to monitor among all of these different issues that we've already been discussing here.
All right, Tommy Pigott, thank you so much. I'm sure you'll have a very busy weekend. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.